Okay, in this video, we're going to look at where we can find sources online. Now, a few of the links we've already given to you are actually on your historian's document, but I just wanted to show you where you could find that there are loads. Don't forget, you're looking for 3 sources, each one being a different type. So what we mean by type is, if you remember back to GCSE, for those that did GCSE, and you looked at nature, origin and purpose of sources, we asked you to look at the type of source that it was, whether it's an interview, a diary, a photograph, a propaganda poster. All of those have an impact upon the way that you see sources. Let's show you basically what is on offer for you in terms of the links that we've given, and then how you can find it. What you want are 3 sources that you can embed across the different time periods. So if you've got, let's say, Votes for Women, because that's the first one we've got up, and you are starting in 1835, and you're moving your way through to 1928, then you are going to need a range of sources across that time period. So maybe you have something from Chartism from the 1840s. Maybe you have something on the suffragettes themselves. Maybe you have something a little bit in the middle, maybe about the 1880s, 1890s, like a newspaper, something like that. Here's our first one. It's the British Library's Votes for Women site, and they've got a collection of things on here for you to find. Okay, so collection items, look, you've got NUWSS, National Union of Women's Suffrage Societies pamphlet. That's from 1867, look, there's one there. Photographs of East London Federation of Suffragettes and the work that they did, 1914-15, so that is just at the start of the war. That would be really good, perhaps. You've got a scrapbook there. You've got a Black Friday pamphlet from 1910, photograph, newspaper, Sophia Duleep Singh, all collection items. Let's see what else we can find. Gosh, there's lots. Blast, the Vorticist magazine, a periodical, 1910, 1913. A lot of these are early. You've got one from 1858, look, because this collection's been organised really well. You've got different publishers and formats. This is an outstanding collection of sources. So there's lots here that you can flick through. The more information, really, the better. I knew it would be that one. That's the cartoon of Queen Victoria as Queen of India. So that's from Punch magazine. Perhaps not the best thing to use related to suffragettes, because your source has got to be related to the topic. And on the next slide, in the next video, you'll look at how you're going to embed a source into your study. Next up, we've got the National Archives. And this is connected to the suffrage movement. Notice it's 1906 to 1918. So this is going to be later sources, but there are 10, 16, 26, 31 sources in total here. You've got loads to flick through, look. A film, a news report, a letter, newsreel, cartoon. Cartoons are good because you can unpick those. Newspapers are great because they've got interpretations in them. You've got absolutely loads of things you can find. Again, it's looking for the date. That's the most appropriate thing. What fits your question? You know, if you're looking specifically about the suffragettes and their actions, maybe look at something that the government has printed, like propaganda against the women. Perhaps you could look at something written by a suffragist or a suffragette. If you look at the grassroots movement, you could look at the diary of a suffragette and see what that brings up. For civil rights, this one is the National Archives. This is in America. So this is our National Archives. In particular, though, look at these. Moderates and extremists, look. Black Power, so these are letters, look. This is President Johnson's reactions to riots. So if I click on this, this will bring up the actual document. So you can actually reference that. So to reference that in your bibliography, you put letter from British Embassy, Washington Foreign Office on the reaction to California rioting and the date, and then you would put in brackets FO 371179611. And then you would reference the website that you got that from. That would count as a primary source that you've then referenced in your bibliography. So from 1965, and it's his response. The transcript is somebody who's read through the letter, confidential letter, and typed it up. That is a fantastic source, though, because it's a confidential article. It's from the British Embassy, so it's a reactionary piece. So there are lots of obvious documents you could find floating around here. There's Eisenhower on Little Rock, look, Ku Klux Klan, school segregation. Don't just look straight for photographs. The written sources are really powerful. The second source that we've got here, this is Newton Gresham Library. It's an American piece. This is looking specifically at primary source, like locations of primary sources. I've not personally used this one myself. That's a good one though. Crisis magazine is the NAACP's magazine. Some of these are quite recent, look, 2011, 2010. I'm assuming you'd be able to find some from earlier though, so perhaps there's a link to an earlier one record there. Booker T. Washington Papers. So Booker T. Washington is one of the individuals who helped with the civil rights movement. Brilliant, obviously remember all of these. And switching them off. But let's scroll through here and you've got some information about Booker T. I'm hoping there's some source work from him. It's quite a big website though. Next up then, we have another website which is the Library of Congress. This one is for Jim Crow and segregation. This one's an interesting one because it's got articles about Jim Crow. We've got the Civil Rights Act of 1875, maps, laws, lots of stuff here on the early Jim Crow laws that were brought in. So this one also is the Library of Congress. This is the NAACP. This is Booker T. Washington's Atlanta speech. So you've got speeches here, addresses, voting rights. There's just absolutely tons of sources out there. This one is now anti-Semitism. And on this one, we've got, this is Eurodocs. And this one, if we click on Alpha History, so it's got a list of contents for this. It's got Alpha History. So this is before the 19th century. Just to click on that. Let's see what that comes to. We've got Saint, well, that's 400 BC, AD. You might be able to get away with the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, 1903. Anti-Semitic pogroms in Russia, 1881. That would absolutely work. Henry IV, the International Jew, interesting. Then you got anti-Semitism in the Nazi period there, 30s. You'll have loads of sources for that time period. It'll be the earlier stuff that you'll need to look for. Let's just take a look at the early one, the anti-Semitic pogroms. Let's see what comes up. Following this, these reports from May 1881 were gathered by Reuters. Brilliant. So you got some reports here. That's great from 1881. That's really nice. Fundamentally, though, you just go for a Google search. So be careful what you search for. Anti-Semitism. Primary sources. You can see I've already done this one. Primary sources. The United States Holocaust Memorial Museum that's not great on that one. I've already done that one. There's the Eurodocs I've had a look at already. Look, there's one on Weimar Society. Let's have a look at that one. This one will take us to their website on Weimar. Decline, thank you. Oh, here we go. Oh, very good. Protocols of the Elders of Zion, we've already seen that. Letter on Anti-Semitism, 1923. So you've got some 1920s materials here. So you've got 20s, you can easily find 1930s stuff, and potentially here you've got some 1880s. So there's a whole variety of sources there, and I hope that that's kind of giving you a flavour of where you can look for your different topics. Thanks. Okay, now we come to an example looking at how the source has been integrated into an answer. Bear in mind this is just one example, and it's just to give you a guide really as to what to look for. Here, look at how obvious they've been in their answer. They've gone the source. The first source we can examine is from J'accuse. It's an open letter, so there's the nature of it. It's a letter. So the letter is addressed to the President of the French Republic, accusing. So we've got a bit of explanation going on about what the source actually is. It portrays an aggressive and accusatory tone. This is valuable. Look at that. A bit of value is attached to it there, as it is further indicating his passionate response to uncover the truth behind the affair. He also depicts a willingness to honestly expose the wrongful trial through my duty. So he's used a quote from the actual source. Now we've got a little bit of context. Look, in late 1894, Dreyfus had been controversially sentenced. There's your context to add to the source. J'accuse is aimed towards the French government, is arguably written to announce Dreyfus's wrongful accusation to a wider audience. So we've got the elements of provenance that we all know about. So here we've got some provenance going on. Here we've got the mention of tone, and it's linked to value. That's mentioned just up there. Here is just an example of where it's ticking off A01, the range 1898 is talking about the fact that this is an early source, which is nice. Okay, so then it moves on. So it talks about, this leads me to perceive his work as a method to inform people about attitudes at the time. It is clear that there are certain limitations to the source due to its origin as a newspaper. It could be exaggerated and dramatized events. Possibly you could push that a bit further and talk about why that is the case. We've got an example of limitations. Example, don't say you have to do this. It's just a nice bit of practice to get into. This one definitely needs to be done. Typicality. How typical is this at the time? It says it's not typical at the time, as most anti-Semitic acts flowed unnoticed in society. We also have a mention here to the source directly attacks and accuses a world superpower of being inherently anti-Semitic in pre-Nazi Europe surrounding Browning's argument. This is what we really want to see here and here, are where they've linked the source to the study and the historian. You want to be able to state what this source reveals about the time period you're talking about, as in, like, why have you included this source? So we've got that mentioned there when it talks about Christopher Browning's work. He talks about countries in which the powers of government mobilization and legalization are powerful and increasing. This relates to the idea in the source. That's brilliant little link there. This bit here also directly attacks and accuses a world superpower in pre-Nazi Europe, supports Browning's idea. This leads me to understand, look at that sentence starter, this leads me to understand the development of anti-Judaism or anti-Semitism into a much harsher, more precise and targeted persecution. There's your link to the question. So that goes back up to the question. I just thought that was a nice example showing you how you drop the source in. So you would have written some information here, and then you go, here's my first source. So the first source we can examine in regards to the continent-wide infiltration of anti-Semitism comes from French novelist Émile Zola. We've got a bit of a date, we talk about tone, we talk about the value, we talk about the context, we've talked a little bit about what it's aiming to do and why, how this then links to the study and to the argument overall. In essence, you're looking at about a page per source analysis if you were to put that on top of this bit here, and it just gives you a flavour of what your answer could look like.